All right, well, child, part 3, this is development. Letter A, recall and define the 5 developmental domains of childhood as per the ages and stages questionnaire. So there are 5 main categories of childhood development that we evaluate routinely at Well Child Checkups. Gross motor, fine motor, language, personal social, and problem solving skills. So let's talk about what each of those things is. Some of them are kind of self-explanatory. So gross motor is movement and coordination of the arms and legs, the trunk, the head, big body parts, okay, and how you move those body parts in space. Dr. England Danson, this is gross motor skills, okay? Kind of looked like I was boxing. That was awkward. Maybe I should do this. Gross motor skills. Fine motor skills are those smaller movements that occur in the wrist, hands, fingers, feet, toes. These are the smaller actions, like picking up an object, all those grasps and those developmental milestones. We'll go over those in a minute. Writing and sometimes even blinking is considered a fine motor skill because it's the tiny little muscles in your face. Awesome. Okay. Language skills. Language skills involve listening, speaking, reading, and writing, okay? So evaluating language skills doesn't stop when the child can talk, okay? Evaluating language skills stops when the child is fluent in their native language, both spoken and written. Personal social development. This involves self-care and how the child interacts with others. So self-care is things like washing your hands, putting your clothes on, using a utensil to feed yourself, and interacting with others, playing games, understanding others' feelings. And the social context is really how children understand themselves in their relation to interactions with others. Problem solving skills, these are cognitive skills. This is how a child perceives, thinks, and gains understanding of his world. This includes remembering, problem solving, and decision making, okay? So I'm going to remember that something happened last time. I'm going to think through the situation, solve the problem, and make a decision on how I'm going to move forward, okay? So that is critical in development. Next up, recall the critical developmental milestones in infants, toddlers, and children. So let's go through those. All right, I've got some little list here that I can go over. So let's start with talking about the newborn. A newborn is going to have what we call primitive reflexes, really for the majority of skills. So the newborn, if you hold them up and tilt them forward, they're going to take a step. They're going to have the Moro, the Babinski, the fencing reflex, and flexor posture. They're also going to have the grasp reflex, which is where they grab mom's hand or finger. Mom's like, oh, the baby clearly loves me because he's holding on to my finger. The language skills, speech and language. At this point, babies will alert to sound and they may cry when they hear a loud sound. They also have very primitive reflexes of the oropharynx to root and to suck. Those are kind of important because babies need to eat. Cognitive problem solving, babies can see about 10 inches, so boob to face. They're breastfeeding. That's as far as they can see. They can fix and follow, but not past the midline, and they prefer to look at faces. Social emotional, this is the time when babies are bonding with the parent, and they're learning to self-regulate and to soothe. At 2 months, growth motor skills, the baby is learning to hold the head steady when prone. So if you lay them on their belly, they're starting to just lift that head up off the table. Not the chest, not the neck, not the shoulders, just the head is coming up off the table. At this point in time, they're able to open the hand and bat the birdie that's on their bouncy swing, okay? They can lift their head up when they're prone and they're batting the birdie. I like an awesome basketball player right now. Okay, I'm terrible at basketball. Speak and language. At this point in time, a 2-month-old is going to turn to voice, and they're going to start cooing. Cooing is making vowel sounds. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah. No consonant sounds at 2 months, just vowel sounds. At this point in time, they are able to follow past midline. So instead of losing interest when you get right here, they'll continue to track an object on across the midline. And they will be interested in things that are new, usually the ceiling fan or a flashy light, but anything that's new they're going to be interested in. Socially, they're going to prefer their usual caregiver. They're going to start to be attached to that person, and they're going to start smiling, which makes parents really happy. Makes me happy too. Big old gummy teeth, gummy smiles. I love babies. All right, at 4 months, they're going to start sitting with some help. They're going to need a lot of help at 4 months. They're going to be able to get that head and chest up off the table. At 4 months, they make a number 4 with their body on the exam table. Okay, so you've got them laying prone, and they don't want to lay prone. They want to look around. So they're going to get those arms up underneath them, and they're going to get that head up and be looking all around at what's going on, okay? At 4 months, they start rolling over. Because that fencing reflex, which is where they do this when they turn their head, that's going to go away. So they're going to start to be able to roll over. Now they're able to not only bat the birdie, but they can grab the birdie and pull him and make him chirp. And they can also start to bring objects to the midline. So they're able to grab that birdie and bring it to the midline. At 4 months, they may start to blow raspberries. They may start to make the gah sound, and they also squeal and laugh, which delights their parents. At 4 months, they start to anticipate routines. They begin to explore objects with their mouth. Now that they can grab an object and get it to the midline, they're going to put it in their mouth and chew on it. And they're going to begin to explore sensations. So if you've got a book that's got a furry duck, they may want to touch or pet the duck. Social or emotional development, they're going to take turns making sound with their parents, and they'll really begin to explore, i.e. grab the parent's face. At 6 months, they should be sitting in a tripod position and rolling both ways really well. So the tripod position, we sit them on the exam table. You put their hands between their legs, so you spread their legs out wide and lean them forward. So they're sitting like a triangle. Their legs are spread out. And you probably can't really see, but legs are spread out and their hands are kind of between them, flat on the front of the exam table like this. So that is the tripod position. That was awesome. I just took you on a little tour of my floor. Okay, so we put babies in the tripod position. They should be able to sit there for about 3 seconds unsupported. Fine motor skills, they're going to begin to develop their raking grasp. So they're going to be able to rake objects towards them. I look like I'm petting an imaginary cat, but this is a raking grasp, okay? They're bringing objects toward them with a raking movement. They are going to start babbling at this point with those consonant sounds. This is when babies go da, 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 da. Da-da is always first. Even if they don't have a da-da, it's always first, okay? At 6 months, they will start to look for a dropped or hidden object. They've started throwing their baby food to the dog. They think it's hilarious to watch the dog eat it, and they will start throwing it and watching the dog eat that food. They begin to develop emotions. They may be happy or sad. And at this age, they start to remember things. And their memory is about 24 hours. So if you threw away their favorite toy yesterday, they're probably still going to be mad at you, okay? Important to know. By 9 months, they should be able to get from all fours to a sitting position. So if they're in a crawling position, they should be able to get to all fours and should be sitting really well. At this age, they're going to start pulling up on everything and cruising around. That means holding on to something and starting to walk around. At this age, they're probably creeping, crawling, bear crawling, scooting. They're getting in things they shouldn't be in. Make sure that child-proofing is done. Fine motor skills, they are going to have an inferior pincer grasp. So remember, at 6 months we were raking. Now at 9 months we've got an inferior pincer grasp, okay? That's usually 2 fingers. And we also poke things like the family dog. So we do see a lot of dog bites at this stage, unfortunately. At this age, they start to say mama and dada specifically. They also start to wave and say bye-bye, and they may even gesture to be picked up. And they may want to play patty cake, baker's man. Problem solving, they realize that if an object is covered up, it's still there. That's called object permanence, and they will uncover the toy, and they love to play peekaboo at this age. From a social emotional standpoint, babies develop stranger anxiety and separation anxiety at this age. From about 9 months to 15 months, they don't like me in the exam room. That's normal. I'm not even sure my own kid this age liked me. So that's very normal. 12 months, gross motor skills. They walk a few steps with a wide-based wobbly gait. Remember, their melon is gigantic, okay, compared to the rest of their body. So they're real wobbly, trying to balance that thing on top of them. Fine motor skills. They've got a fine pincer grasp, just like this, pinch, pinch, okay. They are able to let something go voluntarily now, okay? And that doesn't count just like knocking it off the table to feed it to the dogs. They are able to grasp an object and let it go now. They're able to throw a ball, and they start feeding themselves. It says feeding themselves Cheerios. That starts more like 9 months with that immature pincer. Speech and language, they should have one word other than mama, dada, or other names. They should respond to their own name and be able to follow a one-step gesture. Cognitive problem solving, they should begin to understand cause and effect and trial and error, and they're going to start trying you at this age. They should imitate gestures and sounds and be able to use objects functionally. So if they've got a toy car, they may roll it back and forth. From an emotional, social emotional standpoint, they should start pointing things, and they're going to begin to have a narrative memory. At 15 months, they should be walking really well. Fine motor, they should be using a spoon, still messy, but using one, and drinking from an open-top cup, which is terrifying to parents everywhere to give their babies an open-top cup. They should be able to stack a tower of 2 blocks and point to at least one body part. They should be able to follow a one-step command without a gesture. So you should say, go get your shoes, and you shouldn't have to point to where the shoes are or gesture. They should have 5 words, and they should be going blah, 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 blah. Lots of jargoning that you don't understand. They should look for hidden objects and experiment with toys to figure out how they work. Social emotional shared attention. And this is one of the big points for evaluating to make sure that a kid does not have autism spectrum disorder. They should be pointing to toys or pointing to things that they want, and they should be bringing those things to their parents for a shared experience. They're not going to say, read me this book, but they're going to bring them a book and want you to read it to them. They're going to bring you a teddy bear. They're going to bring you their favorite toy and want you to play with them. Those are all very reassuring things that there is not autism spectrum disorder. At 18 months, they stoop and recover. I don't know why everybody likes the word stoop, but that's one of those stupid word things. Stoop and recover. It means squat down and stand up without falling over. And at 18 months, they can run quite well. Run right to get into whatever it is you don't want them to get into. Fine motor skills, they can carry a toy now while walking, and they are incredibly adept at taking all their clothes off. They can't put them on by themselves yet, but they can throw them all off pretty quickly. They start to scribble at this age, and they have a fisted pencil grasp, okay? So they scribble like this. Again, they should be pointing to objects. By 18 months, should know 3 body parts and have 10 to 25 words. They should be able to label familiar objects, cup, ball, dog, things that they see routinely. Problem solving, they should start to imitate behaviors like housework. They may want to play with a doll or a bear, give it a drink, those kinds of things. At this age, they start playing by themselves a little bit more. They don't need to be right up under mom's coattails for the most part, or dad's coattails. But they do not play with other children. They play beside other children. It's called parallel play. By 2 years of age, they are able to jump with 2 feet. They start going up and down stairs with 2 feet, and they start getting a concept of time. Fine motor skills, Your handedness begins to develop. If you've got a kid before the age of 2 that has a dominant hand, you may want to go making sure there's not some issue going on. They should be good at using a fork and a spoon. They should be able to make a tower of 6 blocks, and they should be able to draw a straight line, okay? Speech, they should be able to follow a 2-step command and have a 50-word vocabulary. You should be able to understand 50% of it or half of it, one half at 2. And they should start putting 2 words together. So, my car, go outside, starting to put 2 words together. They should also start using I, me, and you and plurals. Cars, cups, dogs, plurals. So, 2 years, 2-step command, 50% intelligible or half intelligible, and 2-word phrases. Problem solving, they start to be able to solve problems without having practiced them before. They, from a social emotional standpoint, will test your limits, test their limits. Tantrums, shout no. They're very possessive at this age. They don't share. That's normal for a 2-year-old. That is a taught skill. So you'll often hear them say mine, no, mine. Look, there's a 2-word phrase. I'm so proud of you. Oh, but we got to work on sharing. By 3 years of age, they can pedal a trike. They're able to go upstairs, alternating feet. They are starting to work on toilet training, somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5. They are able to draw a circle, turn pages of the book, do a 3-step command. They should know about 200 words, and 3/4 of it is intelligible, 75%. They should also be putting 3 words together, and they're going to start asking those lovely W questions. Why, where, when, why? They're able to state their full name, their age, and their gender. At this point in time, they start to have very simple time concepts. They're able to identify some shapes and compare objects. Which one's bigger? Which one's softer? And they can count to 3. Count to 3 at 3. Social emotional, they are able to play with others now. They will have cooperative play, and they're learning how to share and learning what empathy is and how to have empathy. At this age, they may also start role playing and pretending. By 4 years of age, they hop on 1 foot, and they're able to go downstairs with alternating feet. By 3, we went upstairs, alternating feet. By 4, we go downstairs, alternating feet. At 4, we can draw a plus, and we start to cut with scissors and buttons. Our speech should be 100% intelligible. We should be able to tell a story and use past tense. We ought to know, count to 4. We ought to know some opposites and be able to identify colors. They may at 4 have a preferred friend and will have very elaborate fantasy play. It's actually really quite fun to play with this age group. By 5, they should be balancing on 1 foot for 10 seconds, and they should be skipping, although not everyone can skip, okay? We should have a skipping contest one day to see how many of your classmates at the age of 20-something still can't skip, okay? At 5, some kids are starting to learn how to run a bicycle. At 3, they're pedaling a tricycle, but at 5, they're starting to learn how to ride that bicycle. They should be able to draw a person with 10 body parts, and they should be working on that tripod pencil grasp, okay? The 3-finger pencil grasp. They should start printing letters, printing their name, and should be independent with most of their activities of daily living, like toileting, getting dressed, and starting to learn how to tie their shoes. They should have an immense vocabulary, be planning and talking about things in the future. They may like to tell silly jokes, and they develop phonemic awareness. That is the ability to decode a word on a page. So you look at a word, you recognize there's letters, and those letters have sounds, and then you put those sounds together to form a word. Kids with dyslexia are not able to do that, at least initially, without appropriate therapy. Cognitive problem-solving skills. By 5, we're counting to 10 and hopefully beyond accurately. Ought to know their ABCs, be able to recognize some of them, and they're starting to learn how to read. They should have a group of friends at this point and start playing games and following rules with their peers. By 6, they should be able to skip well. They should be able to draw a triangle. write their first name and last name, and create short sentences. Although they may not have perfect handwriting yet. They should also be able to tie their shoes well and comb their hair. They should be able to ask what words mean if they don't know, and pick out words that don't belong in a group. They should have a very large vocabulary and be starting to read and write. They should be able to draw a more complex person and begin to understand addition, subtraction, and spelling. By the end of first grade, they should be able to read about 250 words fluently. Social emotional development, they need to be bringing their things. They should have a best friend of the same gender, be able to play board games and distinguish fantasy from reality. They usually want to be like their friends, and they enjoy school at this age. 7 to 8-year-olds, they can ride their bicycle independently. They are doing somersaults. They are playing baseball. They are very active, fun kids. Their fine motor skills, their writing increases quite a bit, and they're able to stay on a line, hopefully. And the uniformity of their letters improves. They should be mastering reading, writing, and more complicated sounds, begin to enjoy reading independently. At this point, from a social emotional standpoint, they typically have household chores. They begin to be able to complete their homework. They learn to play, avoiding hurting others. They learn from their mistakes and begin to help younger children begin to develop concepts of what is fair, and often very strong concepts about what is fair. They learn to take turns in conversation and are able to delay instant gratification. So that is a quick summary of the developmental milestones, although it really wasn't that quick. So I want to draw for you the a little graphic of what kids can draw at each age. So bear with me 1 second. All right, let me find a marker. Okay, so just a quick visual to help you remember what kids can draw at each age. So 3 circle, 4 cross or plus, 5 square, 6 triangle, 7 diamond. And that may be the worst diamond I've ever drawn in my life, but it's a diamond, okay? Just believe me. All right, there we have it. Okay, developmental milestones. Phew. Interpret findings on developmental screening tools that may suggest a diagnosis of developmental delay or autism spectrum disorder. Well, there's 3 major developmental screening tools we use. ASQ, MCHAT, and Denver. Denver is less commonly used in general pediatrics now that we have better tools. So the most common ones we use are the ASQ and the MCHAT. So this is a sample MCHAT, and I've just kind of made up some answers and scored it for you. So on this MCHAT, this is 23 questions, and there are only 4 no's, okay? If you miss any of the critical questions or 2 non-critical questions, then you fail the screening, okay? MCHAT. Now let's look at the ASQ. Remember, the ASQ has those 4 sections. So it looks something like this, and I'll just kind of show you screenings for communication, and it's got little bubble boxes and then a space for parents to write in any additional concerns. There we go. And these, what's actually on the screening as far as the questions are different at every age, and that's why I'm just kind of flipping through it, because you don't need to read the questions. So again, more spaces for parents to write any concerns. And then this is what the scoring sheet looks like. So this is Mickey Mouse scoring sheet here. And you have your 5 categories and you score it. And now every age has a different scoring. So this is the 48-month scoring sheet. So you can see if it's in the black, that's considered abnormal. If it's in the gray, that's considered borderline. And if it's in the white, that's considered normal. So this child would be delayed for communication, or I can't read it upside down, communication skills and problem solving skills, but normal for all the rest, okay? So I would want to look at the screening before I went in and then ask the parents any questions related to this that I might have, okay? So this is how the ASQ is scored. And again, it's different for every age group. So not important for you to remember or to memorize, just important to understand how it works. Okay. So if you get an abnormal screening, so that's how we interpret it. If we get an abnormal screening, we are going to want to respond to that. So the next objective is specify the initial evaluation and stepwise approach in management of developmental delays in autism spectrum disorder. Well, parent concern is usually the first thing. Then we use a screening tool of some variety, and again, we give those out at standard ages. We talked about that a bit under in section 1. Then we just discuss it. Mom says, you know what, I'm worried about the language, but the screening tool says it's normal. Then I'm going to ask more detailed questions about the language and try to really understand what's going on. If it still seems like it's abnormal to me, then I will make a referral. So next up, we refer for further evaluation or for therapies, depending on what the diagnosis is. And it doesn't stop when the kids go to school. So parents will sometimes say, well, he's going to be in school next year, so he's going to be getting therapies there. Well, that's great and fine. But you need to remember that the school has one bucket of money to manage all the kids out there, okay? You're paying your insurance premium, and it will cover additional therapies. If there's any way possible, let's get this kid all the therapies we can to help this kid be the very best they can. Along those same guidelines, we want to make the diagnosis as early as we can. The earlier we diagnose it, the earlier we get them in therapies, the sooner we get whatever the issue is at the very best the kid can be, the more likely they are to be successful. So we want to make sure that we're assessing developmental milestones, addressing developmental milestones, and helping kids reach their full potential. That's it.